Welcome to Zinier Field Talk and Tacos. In this webinar summer series, you join us for an insightful discussion as we uncover practical solutions and strategies to accelerate revenue velocity and well as cultivate long-lasting customer relationships. My name is Rahul Hingle, and I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Growth at Zinier. Today's session is the second of our many planned discussions. In today's session, we'll be discussing how to transform customer experience using the power of real-time notifications. Before we begin, let me introduce again my colleague and friend here. We have with us Rakesh Sharma. Rakesh is the head of sales and business development in US. He's based out of San Francisco and has extensive experience solving operational problems in asset-heavy industries like telecommunications, energy, utilities, and manufacturing. He's also worked with organizations of all sizes from Fortune 500 to startups. Throughout his professional life, Rakesh has passionately believed in the value of technology to make the life of operators and workers a little bit easier, from warehouses to field operators. So welcome, Rakesh.
Thanks, Raul. Thanks for the intro.
Awesome. So, today's session, we are looking to talk about transforming customer experience, especially using the power of real-time notifications, right? Rakesh, I'm not sure if you have read the latest work trend index. The latest work trend index data, it revealed that frontline workers are facing burnout and retention issues. There is gaps in information. It is leading to inefficient operations and so on and so forth, right? And it is becoming like a vicious circle, right? So in this session, we wanted to delve a little bit into the top 3 benefits of digital transformation, especially looking into field services, shed some light on successful managing customer expectations especially when service disruptions happen. And later on, we'll see if we have time and we'll explore the strategic advantage of the build versus buy approach. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So, my first question for you is overall, in your view, what are the top 3 benefits of digital transformation for the field services, considering the frontline workers?
Yeah. So, throughout like our experience kind of working with different organizations and different customers, we've kind of come across 3 key value drivers for organizations, right? First and foremost, it's on the customer side, right? And it's really about driving more customer engagement through a self-service, through allowing customers to, have a self-service engine, right, for themselves and to drive that entire experience. So that's the first kind of avenue. The second is employee engagement, and exactly to the points that you kind of highlighted, right, which was all about, how do you, in this digital world, how do you make the life of the field employee a lot easier, right? So that they have everything, pretty much all the information that they need available at their fingertips, right? So that's like one key thing. The third key aspect is future-proofing, which is all about, everyone who's been in operations, we know that operations change and oftentimes it changes day to day, right? So having a platform that can essentially keep pace with those operational changes is actually very, very important. And that's what I think, if we were to kind of sum it up from a digital transformation perspective, those are the 3 key benefits that organizations clearly kind of look out for.
Okay. Interesting. See, when it comes to field services management and digital transformation in the context of field services, most organizations only think about cost and resource optimization. But you have brought in a very good perspective about customers, which can potentially also add to your top line revenue.
Yes, exactly. So, I'll give you a simple example, right? So last week we kind of talked about one key aspect, which is all about pre-installation cancellations, right? So, essentially having customers be aware of what's going on in the field, having the customer engaged with, and having that direct line of communication, let's say between the customer to the field and the customer service rep, right? All those 3 aspects kind of all in sync really helps kind of drive up the customer engagement and also helps increase the retention of customers. And basically that has an impact on customer lifetime value, right? So if you look at that, essentially what you're looking at is direct direct line of sight from customer to digital transformation to basically revenues, right? So that's kind of like the line of sight. But more importantly, actually, from a field experience and a field customer standpoint, for field employee standpoint, right? One of the things that this is from my experience, kind of working with the utility, right? I remember going out into the field with a few of the guys doing ride-alongs, and I remember the first time I went to the field with some of these folks, they had a stack of papers in the field about that big, right? That thick, right? For instruction manuals and basically like how do you service a distribution transformer, whatever it might be, right? And really, what it shows is the amount of work that the field technician has to do without actually doing the work, right? And that actually has a negative impact, let's say, like, from a customer experience standpoint, because if you actually look at, if you have a person that's going in and basically like going through all of this paperwork in a world where we're ordering food on our phones, that essentially leads to a negative just leads to a perception from a customer standpoint that the industry is a laggard or the company is a laggard, right? So you want to also combat that perception as well. So that's kind of how I would kind of sum it up.
Right. Excellent. So, for just following your train of thought, right? Looking at the customer expectations, how have they evolved in the last few years, particularly in field services? You mentioned that the customers now expect that the technicians they have all the information about the work orders and so on and so forth on the fingertips. They don't want to see big binders and somebody looking through it. But overall, anything else that you want to elaborate on customer expectations?
Yeah, so I think we're essentially becoming more of an on-demand society, right? And really, when we talk to customers and us as customers as well, right? Our whole user experience has been influenced by consumer apps like Uber, Lyft, etc., right? So driving that Uber-like experience is one of the most important things, right? So how do you do that? It's in essentially keeping the customer informed through real-time notification, giving them visibility when the technician's arriving, and not just arriving on time, sometimes arriving early or arriving late, right? So essentially all those things, right? On-time performance is basically on both sides. It's not just early or on time. It's early and delayed, right? You need to keep track of that so that you can plan your day better. So essentially keeping all of that in loop is actually very, very important, right? The other thing is also more and more customers are kind of getting away from this, but I think we're going into a world where we're slowly starting to become more of a dispatcherless type of organization. So what I mean by that is, kind of cutting out the man in the middle from man or person in the middle, really from the customer to the actual field, right? How do you make that more seamless, more automated, right? So that's the world in which we're heading, right? And I would say, from a customer expectation standpoint, the other key thing is I expect whoever I'm interacting with from the customer standpoint to know everything about me as distancing me, right? So what kind of product do I need? What potential issues do I have? Do I have a dog in the yard who's gonna be barking? Things like that, right?
Yeah.
If I've told the customer service representative that information or I've put that into my sign-up sheet, then I expect the field technician or the field engineers to actually know about that as well.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So, so in this line, right, with the real-time customer communications, I think that is pretty critical. Do you think there's potential to use this not only for when when things break and but what I'm trying to say is that is there potential to turn these potential service disruptions into proactive customer delights using the power of customer communication?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, it's the power of informing the customer, right? And so when I think about it, one way that we've seen kind of organizations kind of keep the customer delighted, I think, is simple changes, right? By essentially providing the customers with appointment schedules that actually fit with the field capacity, for instance, right? That's just one very simple thing that you would think, but actually has a outsized impact on customer experience, right? Because now I'm selecting the slots based on not just my availability, but also on the field availability. And that's one key aspect that I think from a calendar and from a scheduling standpoint actually helps drive improvement from a customer experience standpoint, right? The second part, from a customer notification as well as from keeping the customers informed standpoint, right? Having informing the customers through multiple channels, right? You have to have availability from a phone standpoint, as well as from the email, SMS, whatever, right? Having that kind of breadth of kind of I would say like multi-channel communication has to be important, right? And then the other key thing is providing the visibility to the customers on when the technicians are arriving, when are they leaving, and when is it that they're going to be doing some work. And it's also important to keep in mind, sometimes the work is actually outside the four walls of the house. So the technician or the field engineer does not have to enter, right, the premises, but they'll be working from outside. So just having that visibility is actually very important. So whether it's outside work or indoor work is actually like an important part of that as well. So all of those factors basically kind of help drive not just customer notifications, but help improve the overall customer experience, I would say.
Right. Makes sense. So to summarize, right, what you're saying is that whenever a service disruption happens, right, it is a kind of a negative event. You have the potential to actually take that negative event and convert it into a positive customer experience. Because see, things break. Customers know that, everyone knows that you cannot have 100% of things working all the time, right? But this can, by using good communication channels, real-time notifications, you can convert that into a positive experience for the customer by keeping them informed, right? Setting their expectations right, as well as you can have this as a key differentiator for your company as a client, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, precisely.
Okay. This is interesting. It is something that I know in my past experience companies have struggled to deal with, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and one more thing which is actually like pretty important, which actually this goes a little bit beyond just the overall customer experience, right? When we tie in some of the challenges that that our customers face from a field standpoint, it's actually in hiring the right set of folks, having the right skilled technicians going out for the right jobs. Are they in the right proximity, things of that nature. So driving those efficiencies is important. And that's more or less kind of managed by existing scheduling engines. It's managed by us pretty well, right? But it goes beyond that, right? What we're actually running into is organizations are having a skill issue, right? So there's a huge shortage of field technicians and field workers, right? So driving up the skilling of the actual technicians is actually an important part. And so one of the things that we find is, by providing more digital workflows for the field technicians, you can actually increase the pool of available technicians for the amount of work as well, right? And also using certain things like remote collaboration tools and things of that nature actually can help drive up the help drive down the time to resolution, and also help drive up that customer experience as well, because now you get to higher first call resolution.
Right. So Rakesh, now this is kind of current state where there is potential for companies to improve on their digital transformation, using real-time notifications. These channels are already set, right?
Mhm.
Let's consider a future state, right? What are some of the technologies that can be used to complement the customer communications? The hot topic right now is AI. Is there an angle for AI to be brought in for improving the customer experience? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, it's an interesting kind of confluence of different things, right? So, in fact, this is going to be a big topic at the conference I'm actually attending today. They're going to be talking about AI and generative AI and how that can impact the field, right? But that aside, I think if you look at the overall kind of from a technology framework, right? The good thing about over the course of the last, I would say, like few years, is that computing power has really increased, and it's become very dispersed because of the cloud, right? So what that means is that our ability to analyze large sets of data is actually increased quite drastically. So that has actually allowed AI models to actually become much more, I would say, much better and much more usable, right? Uh, I think there's still a little bit of kind of work that has to be done, but essentially it's getting there, right? But if I were to kind of look at peel the onion back a little bit and kind of think through like how it can be used, right? So there's a couple of key things where predictive analytics, AI, and I would say the world of Zinier, which is field services, kind of intersect, right? And I look at it from metrics standpoint. So the first is mean time between failures, right? So MTBF, which is kind of common industry parlance, right? It's essentially understanding and predicting when a certain piece of asset in the field will actually fail, right? So it could be a network cabinet or whatever it might be with a bunch of routers in there. It could be those kind of issues, right? So predicting, let's say, like based on certain inputs coming in from IoT devices, saying, hey, this piece of equipment might be failing, right? So sending out a field engineer to actually do the work proactively will help resolve that mean time between failure kind of challenge, right? The second thing, because things will obviously break, right, is the time to resolution aspect, right? The time to resolution aspect is all about how do you drive the right people going into the right jobs from the right proximity, and then basically how do you help resolve the issue in a faster time frame. So that's another application from an AI perspective, right? And then the third key aspect, and this kind of ties into the previous point I'd made about knowledge base, right? Essentially, if you have a issue that's already been identified, kind of figuring out from a knowledge base, hey, this is the workflow that needs to be done, and this is the ticket that needs to be opened for that particular challenge, and then already kind of preloading that for the field technician so that when they go into the field, they're resolving that specific issue, actually helps kind of drive more of that employee, not just employee engagement, but also drives that time to resolution, and then also helps drive improvement from mean time between failure standpoint, right? So essentially, you're looking at it across all those different factors, and that's where I see the biggest benefit and the biggest bang for the buck from a AI and from a predictive analytics standpoint.
Okay, excellent. No, that's very interesting. So Rakesh, I was going to open up for Q&A at the end, but we got a very interesting question, from one of our, I believe it is relevant for the telecom industry, but could be for manufacturing and other industries as well, right? So the question is that, all well and good, you have mostly talked about the positive impacts with the customer communications that might have. Have you encountered any failures, right? Where anytime a customer might have implemented it wrong, maybe, however you want to define a failure.
So are you talking about from a digital transformation journey standpoint or from?
No, from a customer communications perspective.
Okay. From a failure standpoint, yeah. I think that's an interesting take on kind of how things can work, right? Obviously, I think in general we know that not every implementation, not everything is perfect, right? But kind of at least from my experience, kind of looking at Areas where I would say, there's been a bit of a areas where there can be a delta, right, or changes that can happen. I think first and foremost, it's in if I were to kind of look at it, it's not necessarily from a customer notification standpoint, right? Actually, most of the challenges, most of the failures actually originate more from an operational standpoint, right? So it's more about operational organization. How do you organize the workforce, and then how do you kind of communicate that to the customers, right? So that's actually like that's where I've seen most of the failures. I would say root cause of failures really happen, right? So what does that mean, right? So if you actually look at, like, for instance, some field organizations, this is actually going beyond telecommunications, right? Some field organizations are organized in a couple of different ways. So first, from a customer standpoint, so they could be tagged to specific customers, or they and sometimes they tag based on certain services or skills, right? Oftentimes, what tends to happen is that I'm an operational manager, and my field engineer or someone is actually on vacation, and I don't realize it. And then essentially, there's a high priority ticket that gets created, and that person is the right person for it, but is not available, right? Right. Now that leads to a customer notification failure, where essentially I am not able to get the right person, right? And that's where I've seen most of the failures actually happen, right? So it's not necessarily from a technology standpoint, but it's really from an organizational standpoint. So when you're talking about customer notifications, it's not just about customer notifications, but it's also about me as a manager having visibility into what my field force is doing, and tag that on with the actual kind of planning with the actual customer side as well. So having backups, having folks who are kind of cross-trained, and ability to kind of pool resources is actually important. And this is actually like one thing which one of our clients has actually done, where they have a business unit that they're standing up, where they're looking to pool resources coming in from other business units. And that will actually lead to a higher utilization from a field technician standpoint. But having that visibility is actually very important as an operational manager, because I need to be able to deploy my workforce in a flexible manner. So that's how I see it. So hopefully that answers the question.
Oh, so and I'll even give you a very, very basic experience that I've had, right? I got just I think 2 weeks back, I got a communication that the technician will be there at 11 a.m., right? And fortunately, I was at home, so like, yeah, sure, no problem. The technician did not come there till 2 p.m., right? So imagine if I had been at office and I had to come back and make sure that I could let the technician in and so on. I mean, my house is I've automated my house and so on, but still I would prefer, if somebody's entering my house, that I be there, right? So just in my book, there's no information, there's wrong information, and there's right information. Of course, right information is top there, right? But I think wrong information can actually do more harm than good, right? So if your entire tech landscape is not set up to provide the correct information to the customers, right, I would rather go for no information, right, rather than wrong information.
Yes. Yeah. So I agree with that, and I can empathize with that situation.
So Rakesh, now I think, thank you so much. It is time to wrap up a bit. We will open up for Q&A, but before that, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to our conversation. We hope you found it helpful. So I'll just wait for a few seconds if there's any other pertinent questions. I took a lot of questions from the chat, and I asked Doug McCallan, who's our Vice President of Sales for Europe. This will be on Tuesday, August 29th. The topic will be how to uncover the power and significance of a user-friendly UI for field service management. Please share this episode, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much.